It was a regular morning along the Florida coastline when something unusual was spotted near a military naval base. As waves gently lapped at the shore, a body, lifeless and battered, washed ashore. It wasn't until authorities arrived that they realized the young woman in question wasn't just any random victim. She was someone's mother. This shocking discovery near a naval base would set off a chain of events that unraveled a web of deceit, tragedy, and crime. It would soon be known as the Shoreline mystery, but its aftermath would leave more questions than answers for the authorities. The body belonged to 26-year-old Emily Taylor, a mother of two who had been missing for several days. Her sudden disappearance had left her family in a state of panic and confusion, as there had been no sign of foul play. Until now. The authorities quickly confirmed that her death wasn't an accident, and a homicide investigation was launched. This was only the beginning of a heart-wrenching case that would shock the community and send ripples of fear through the local area. Emily Taylor's life before tragedy. Before the tragic event, Emily Taylor's life had seemed like that of any other. She lived in a modest apartment with her two children, ages 3 and 5, in a quiet neighborhood near Jacksonville, Florida. Emily had always been a devoted mother, and her social media pages were filled with photos of her kids, her family, and trips to local parks. To the outside world, she appeared to lead a simple, happy life. But as the investigation into her death began, it quickly became apparent that things were not as perfect as they seemed. Emily had been dealing with some personal struggles in the months leading up to her death. Friends and family revealed that she had been facing issues in her relationship with her boyfriend, Tom Harris, a military contractor. Though they had a child together, their relationship had been on rocky ground, marked by frequent arguments and estrangement. Emily had confided in close friends about feeling trapped and unsure about the future of her relationship. Yet, no one could have predicted the devastating turn her life would take, culminating in her untimely death near a naval base that seemed so far removed from her personal issues. The mysterious circumstances of her death. Emily's body had washed up on a beach just yards away from a restricted area of the naval base. The location alone raised red flags for investigators. Was her body placed there intentionally, or had it washed ashore naturally after her death? It wasn't long before authorities began to suspect foul play. The condition of her body suggested that she had been in the water for several days. The investigators were initially puzzled by the cause of death. There were no obvious signs of trauma, and no weapon was found nearby, but there were subtle signs indicating that Emily may have been suffocated or drowned before being discarded in the water. Her clothing was partially torn, and there were... Investigating Tom Harris. Tom Harris had a history that seemed to match the profile of someone who could be involved in a crime like this. While he wasn't directly linked to any criminal activity, the investigators soon uncovered that Tom had been hiding aspects of his personal life. He had once been involved in a domestic dispute with a former partner, and there were also rumors about his behavior becoming increasingly erratic over the past few months. Still, Tom insisted that he had no idea where Emily had gone after their last argument. Upon further investigation, law enforcement uncovered that Tom had access to military-grade equipment as part of his work with the military contractor, raising concerns that he might have been using his connections for illegal purposes. The more investigators dug into his background, the clearer it became that Tom was hiding something. What had started as a standard missing person case now seemed to be a much more complex and dangerous situation. Emily's family also recalled that Tom had been unusually distant and evasive during their conversations, especially after Emily's disappearance. His inconsistent answers, combined with his refusal to help search for Emily, made him a prime suspect in the case. The shocking arrest of Tom Harris. After days of intense questioning and mounting evidence, the authorities finally arrested Tom Harris. They had gathered enough circumstantial evidence to charge him with the murder of Emily Taylor. What they didn't know, however, was the shocking twist that would come when Tom was finally confronted. When Tom was brought in for questioning, he initially denied any involvement in Emily's death, sticking to his story that he hadn't seen her since their last fight. But the investigators weren't buying it. They had obtained cell phone records showing multiple calls and messages between Tom and Emily on the night of her disappearance. The last communication between them was chilling. A text message sent from Emily's phone that read, "I can't do this anymore." When confronted with this evidence, Tom's story began to unravel. In a heated confession, he admitted to having an explosive argument with Emily the night before she went missing. During the argument, things escalated to the point where he lost control. Tom claimed he accidentally smothered Emily during a struggle, but panicked and didn't know how to deal with the situation. Fearing the consequences, he decided to discard her body in the ocean near the naval base, hoping that the current would hide the evidence. The authorities were stunned by Tom's confession. What had started as a seemingly tragic accident turned into a deliberate act of violence. Tom's attempt to cover up the crime along the fallout and media frenzy. As news of Tom Harris's arrest spread, the media frenzy surrounding Emily's murder grew to a fever pitch. News outlets from across the country began covering the case, and soon, Emily's story was being shared widely on social media platforms. People couldn't stop talking about how someone they had trusted and loved could commit such an unforgivable crime. The public outrage was palpable. For Emily's family, the aftermath of Tom's confession was a bitter pill to swallow. They had always hoped that Emily's disappearance was due to an unfortunate accident, not murder. But now they were left to grapple with the horrifying truth that the person they had trusted most, Emily's partner, the father of her child, had been responsible for her death. The pain of losing Emily was compounded by the betrayal they felt from Tom's lies. Emily's children, who were just 3 and 5 years old, would grow up without their mother, and they would never truly understand the depth of the tragedy that had unfolded. What was really happening? As the investigation progressed, the connection to the nearby naval base became more significant. It was discovered that Tom Harris had worked in close proximity to the base and had several military contacts. Investigators began to wonder if his military connections were tied to the murder in some way. Was he involved in something more dangerous or illegal that led to Emily's death? Did Emily unknowingly stumble onto something she wasn't supposed to know? These questions loomed large over the investigation. However, after further scrutiny, no clear evidence emerged that linked Tom to any larger criminal activity involving the base. The motive for Emily's murder, it seemed, was far more personal, a volatile and toxic relationship that had ultimately spiraled out of control. The court case and legal battle. As the case moved to trial, Emily's family found themselves in a legal battle to ensure that Tom Harris was held accountable for his actions. The prosecution sought the maximum sentence, arguing that Tom's actions were premeditated, even if the murder itself had been the result of a fit of rage. Tom's defense team, however, argued that Emily's death had been a tragic accident and that Tom had acted out of fear and panic. The trial was a painful reminder of the depth of the betrayal Emily's family felt. As the case dragged on, they struggled to find closure, knowing that nothing could bring Emily back. They fought for justice, determined to see that Tom Harris faced the consequences of his actions. In the end, Tom Harris was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Emily's family, the conviction provided a sense of justice, but it couldn't erase the pain they felt from losing her. The case left a lasting mark on the community near Jacksonville. People in the area rallied together to support Emily's family and ensure that her children would have a future filled with love and care. Local organizations raised funds to provide for the children's education and well-being, and Emily's memory lived on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. The tragic death of Emily Taylor was a reminder of how quickly life can change, and how the ones closest to us can sometimes be the ones who hurt us the most. It was a sobering wake-up call that a seemingly ordinary relationship could hide dark, dangerous secrets.